This is the Joe Wentz Project Podcast, where guitars still live and breathe. And the classics stay alive and well. While you're here, don't forget to check out the links below for info on where to get yourself a t-shirt and other apparel. Thanks for stopping by. And now, on with the show.
Welcome, everybody, to the Joe Wentz Project Podcast. And no, this is not a mobile edition. I'm at home right now, and so I'm trying to get this better quality here without hearing the sound of the road, driving down the road. I know that can be annoying, and I apologize. I really do. So here we go with part 2 of my first gig, and I believe the last time I talked about this, or where I ended, rather, was when Walter joined Eric and myself, and we were a trio. And so we got together and we started playing, and it was great for a while. Things seemed to be going along pretty smooth. We had a lot more songs, like I said, because Walter was well known on the local music scene. He really was. I mean, and he's a great singer, great acoustic guitar player, just, awesome all the way around. So we start getting things together. We start playing some shows. And then, you remember when I talked about in part 1, Eric's former wife. Well, let's just say this one particular night, she got inebriated pretty well with alcohol. So we're up there playing, and there's people up there dancing and all that stuff, just like what people do, at a gig or whatever in the audience. And so she comes up there and she lifts her shirt in front of us. I mean, she comes, and just her shirt, not her, her bra didn't come off, thank God. But it was just, I was like, oh my God, in front of us and everybody, in the bar. And that was one of the key elements that broke up everything. Another key element was Walter is known for being very punctual. He's known for, being on time. He usually arrives like 30 minutes early to anything he does, especially a gig, which I respect a whole lot. I really do. And there was a couple of times where Eric was late, and it wasn't Eric's fault. It was his ex-wife's fault. She was just weird. And so the place we were playing at, the owner, Danny, that I talked about in the previous podcast, we had to start at 8 o'clock sharp. That's what time we had to start. Well, 10 minutes to 8 rolled around, and Walter looked at me and said, "Hey, man, is Eric coming?" And I said, "Yeah, he's coming," because I called him. So 8 o'clock, no Eric. The owner looks at us and says, "All right, boys, I'm paying you to start playing at 8. Let's go." And it's like, uh-oh. So we start playing. We start going into our set, and it's just Walter and myself. About 8:45, Eric and his former wife, they walk in the door. And Eric just kind of looks kind of flustered, like you could tell he was like in a hurry. He had his little songbook and his music stand to put his his lyrics book on and everything. Well, Walter didn't really say nothing on this first occasion. He just kind of looked at me with a kind of look like, "Man, this ain't too good," but he ignored it. And then Eric got up there with us, and, and we played. Everything was cool. And then, so now the next time we played was like I don't think it was the next weekend, it was the weekend after. And, again, we had to start at 8. Eric didn't show up to like 9:15. Now, by this time, Walter was highly upset, to say the least. And he told me, he said, "This ain't going to work. He's still getting the same cut of money we are, and he's not even here on time." And he had a point. I couldn't argue that point. I was, trying my best to defend Eric, but at the same time, Walter was right, and there was nothing I could say about that. So Eric shows up about 9:15, and Walter looked at me and said, well, me and him was going to have a little talk. And I was like, oh, God. So we had started our second set by the time Eric got there. So Eric got up there and joined us. And I could just feel the tension. Man, you could cut it with a knife. I was just like, oh, man. And, of course, Eric's former wife, she's buying shots and getting blitzed and, hooting and hollering and all that stuff. And I'm like, man, she's out of control, And I was thinking that to myself. And I felt bad for Eric because Eric is the sweetest guy you'd ever meet, man. He doesn't talk crap to nobody. He doesn't start trouble. He minds his own business, great dude. And Walter's a great guy, too. Both of them are extremely great people. But we got done with that second set, and Walter put his guitar up, and he looked at Eric, and they kind of got face to face. Eric's kind of tall, so he's taller than Walter. And I was standing there, and I was like, guys, come on, let's don't do this, man. It's, everything will be cool. And they didn't even acknowledge me. They were looking at each other square in the eye, and Walter said something to the effect of, you can't be showing up here late like this. This ain't going to work. And I never in my life seen Eric get upset or angry until this night. And then he looked at him and he said, it ain't none of your business what I do. I'll get here when I can. I couldn't help it. If you don't like it, tough crap, to put it nicely. And I just kind of walked off. I was like, I thought they was going to go at it right there in the establishment. I really did. I was like, oh my God, man, you got to be kidding me. But they didn't. And so we finished out the night. We got our money, split it 3 ways evenly. And just to top things off, Eric's wife, she got so plastered, man. She laid her head on one of the tables she was sitting at, and she was passed out. She was knocked out because she was drunk and just overdid it. And everybody had already left the bar. Everybody was gone. It was like, I don't know, like 1 a.m. or something like that. And in South Carolina, the way it is here, because we'd play on a Saturday night, and then of course midnight it's Sunday, so they can't serve alcohol. That's the way it was then. I don't know how it is now. This is a long time ago. But at midnight they would shut the place down because they couldn't serve no more liquor or beer or whatever. So she's passed out. She's got her head down. I thought she was just like taking a nap or something, but she was literally passed out. And Eric walked over there to try to, he put his hand on her shoulder and said, come on, we got to leave. And she wasn't moving. She just kind of like fell over. And I was like, oh God. So I had to help him carry her to the car. He got under her shoulders and I got her by the feet, and we took her out of that place like that. And, this is in front of people that were still there. And I felt so bad for Eric. I really did. I was like, oh golly, man, and so we put her in the car. Eric puts a seatbelt on her. She's still passed out, and she's just reeking of alcohol, And I said, Eric, is she going to be okay, man? And he said, yeah, she'll be all right. She'll just, I got to get her home and try to get her in the house. I said, okay, man. And well, Eric went back inside. Walter and I were standing out in the parking lot, just sitting there chit-chatting, and Walter looked at me and said, this ain't going to work, man. This is out of control, and this just ain't going to work. This is making all of us look bad. And again, he had a point. He had a point. I was like, I know, man. I said, I'll talk to him. And he said, yeah, you talk to him, because if I talk to him, it's not going to be good. So we're finishing up our conversation, and Eric walks back out of the establishment. We're in the parking lot. He walks up to me and he says, Joe, man, can I talk to you alone for a minute? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I walked over there by his car away from everybody. And he said, man, can I borrow some money? He said, she ran up such a high bar tab, I got to pay it. And, we all three got I think this particular night we got close to $50 a piece. So I think it was a total of $150 we got paid, because it was a good crowd. But he didn't have enough money, even with his share of the money from the gig. He needed more money because her bar tab was it was like $125. That's just for drinks and shots and all that. She was buying everybody shots and running up a tab, and he didn't know it at the time, and we sure as heck didn't know it. We didn't know that. I was like, I was too busy concentrating on what songs we were playing at the time. So I pulled my money. I said, yeah, man, no problem. It didn't bother me. It really didn't, because he's, like I said, he's like a brother to me, and he needed help. I said, sure, man, no problem. So I pulled it out, gave it to him, and I think I gave him an extra 20 as well. And he said, man, I'll pay you back in the next 2 days when I get paid from work. And I said, Eric, don't worry about it, man. Just go ahead and pay it and get her home and make sure she's okay. That's all that matters. So he was very appreciative, and he was very apologetic. And I said, dude, it's okay. Don't worry about it, man. Just do what you got to do, and we'll hook up in a couple of days. And so he left. I walked back over to where Walter and his wife and my ex-wife at the time. Well, she was my first wife at the time. She's my ex-wife now. Thank God. And and Walter was like, what was all that about? Because, they could see that we were talking. We weren't, we was maybe 30, 40 yards from where they were standing when he was talking to me, when Eric was talking to me alone. So we weren't that far from everybody, But I think we were just enough out of earshot where they couldn't hear, because he always talked real kind of softly anyway. And he said, what was that all about? And because they saw me give him the money, so they knew something was up with money. And I told him. And I said, man, his wife ran up that bar tab and he needed money. And he was just floored, He's like, yeah. He said, you're going to talk to him, man. This ain't going to work. This is crazy. I said, yeah. Like I said, yeah, I will, man. I'll talk to him. So I think it was 2 days later, Eric came over to the house where I used to live in that area in town. And he came over and he had the money. And then my wife at the time, she came outside, and she had to put her 2 cents in about what Eric's wife had done and all this stuff. And I looked at her and I said, look, we don't need that. It's done. It's over. And Eric got upset about that, and he gave me the money and he left. I could tell he was upset, and I was like, oh, golly, man, this is just getting worse. I don't want to ruin our friendship over some stupid bull crap. It's not worth it. And the very next day, Eric called me on the phone and he said he was quitting. He was quitting the group, the trio. He said, man, I can't do this no more. And he was like, it's nothing against you, nothing like that, but I just can't do it. And I said, I understand, man. I said, I understand what you're saying. And I said, it's no hard feelings or nothing, man. I said, but it was fun while it lasted. And he agreed, So he quit. And I called Walter on the phone, and I said, well, Eric just quit. And if I believe at that moment in time, Walter's response was good, we can do this without him. And I said, look, man, I said, yeah, we can do this. I said, but he's a good dude. I said, he didn't mean anything. It was his wife that caused all this. And he just, he doesn't want to be under some unneeded pressure. And Walter agreed with me. It's not like he hated Eric. He was just pissed that all this, he was late 2 or 3 times. His wife was always drunk and belligerent, and it just, it just didn't go over well. And it didn't. So Walter and I continued as a duo, still under the Joe Wentz Project, and we played, and everything was going great. We were having a good time. And it wasn't long after that, Walter talked about forming a full-fledged band. And I about said full-size band. A full-fledged band. And so I got online. This is how long ago this was. This is when everybody still had dial-up, AOL. And so I got online and did a search for drummers on this one site. I couldn't tell you what the name of the site. It was so long ago. And I found this guy. And actually, he didn't live too far from Walter. He actually he was closer to Walter than he was me, as far as where he lived. So I talked to Walter about it, and we agreed to contact him. So I called, and the guy, the drummer's name, his name was David. I left a message on his machine. This is, I guess, when people still had answering machines, and left a message, left my phone number. He called me back, and we talked, and he seemed like a really down to earth guy. And I remember his ad online. It said he had like 20 plus years experience in drumming. That's what I was like. Is this guy for real? I mean, is that man? I was like, how old is this guy? And actually, he was, around our age. He was a little bit older. He's probably maybe 10 years older than me at the time. He, of course, still is. But so we went over there, went to his house. He had a nice one-level house in a nice neighborhood, had a really nice big 2-car garage with a big giant door on the front. It wasn't like 2 separate doors. It was just one giant door, it was a 2-car garage. But he didn't keep cars in there. That's where he kept his drum kit and all this, his PA system and all this stuff. So he, we knew he was for real. He wasn't one of these fly-by-night people that you see on Craigslist, and you go over there and the guy's got like this, $100 drum kit, Dealt with them people many moons ago, and I was like, oh God. So you have to really know how to filter out the good from the bad, And so we went over there, and all three of us played. Now at this point in time, we didn't have a drummer. Excuse me, we didn't have a bass player, and so we all three jammed, and man, it just went along perfect. It was just unbelievable how everything clicked. And I was just thrilled. I was thrilled to death, man. I was like, golly, this is awesome, And I'd say about a month or two later, we got a bass player. His name was Jeremy Phillips. Super, super nice guy. I think Walter knew him from somehow. Walter knew him. I think it was Walter's idea to bring him into the band, which was a great idea. Jeremy's again, super nice guy, man. Fantastic bass player, great sense of humor, just a down to earth guy. And so Jeremy joins, and we all start, going over these songs, and we ended up practicing. Believe it or not, this is no joke. It was Dave, the drummer, Dave's idea that he wanted us to be solid and tight and be at our very best, because and it was true. He had a lot of experience, 20 years plus, and you could tell by the way he played the drums. He knew his stuff. He could play anything, and I was just like, man, and he would play it just like it was off the album, whatever the song was, it was just to the T. And he said, guys, I've been in so many bands. I've been in good bands. I've been in mediocre bands. I've been in bad bands. He said, but I want this band to be the best that we can be. And so we practiced for right at a year. Can you believe this? I mean, it was right at a year we practiced, and we got so tight. We really got really good. I mean, I'm not trying to toot our own horn here, but we really did. We did really well. And then after that, we started auditioning for gigs. I mean, when I say auditioning, this one particular time, Dave went to there was a new place in Spartanburg that was opening up at the time. It was called Chief's Wings and Firewater. It was a pretty big place with a good reputation. They have one of those restaurants over here on this side of town that is huge. They do mega business, and when bands play there, man, I know they make good money. That is one good place to play here in South Carolina, here in town, I should say. All the other places are kind of, not really worth the trouble. But Chief's Wings and Firewater was opening up another location on the other side of town, over there not far from where Dave and Walter live. And so Dave and I think Dave and Walter went up there one night to talk to the manager and the co-manager of that place. And they hadn't opened yet. They were about to have a grand opening, but they weren't open yet. And Dave talked them into coming to Dave's house, the drummer, and watch us do a few songs from our first set. And they agreed. They came over one night when we had practice, and it was like a walk in the park. We had it, Our first song on the first set I remember was "I Go Blind" by Hootie and the Blowfish. That was always the first song, And then we go into some other stuff, Bryan Adams, Tom Petty, and the list goes on and on and on. And something I always look for when people were listening to us, or, anybody in general, if you're playing and you're in a band and you're playing and you see somebody's foot tapping on the floor, or they got their hand kind of tapping on their knee, or their foot's going back and forth, that's a good sign, because that shows that they're paying attention and they're interested in the music you're playing. And that's what these two managers from Chiefs, Wings, and Firewater were doing at the time. They were standing there, bobbing their head, they were tapping their foot. They kind of looked at each other and smiled, and I was like, "Oh, I think we're into good," And so they said, "Yeah, guys, y'all got the job if you want it." And we was like, "Okay, cool." So Dave walked them out to the car. Dave came back in. He goes, "What do you think about that, fellas? We're going to play at the grand opening of this place." And we was stoked, man. We were stoked. And here's where I found out the hard way. This is when things get messed up when you play live music and you're in a band. You agree on a certain amount of money. And then when it comes time to get paid, they always want to change that amount to a lesser amount than what was agreed upon to begin with. And that's what happened at this place. It was set up to where we were going to get $400. It's going to be $100 a piece. And I was like, "Yeah, that's cool with me, man. That's awesome." So we went there and got set up, did sound check. Everything was cool. We had a great show. And instead of getting $100 a piece, we got like 60. So they paid us less money. And I understand. Dave told me, he said, "That's not what we agreed on. It's supposed to be, 400. And they said, "No, this is what you're getting." And Dave looked at him and said, "Well, we'll never come back here again. Y'all can take this and shove it." And we never did. We never went back there. But it was fun that night while we were there. It was just a shame that they shafted us out of, a third of our money. That's what was messed up. So that's one lesson that I learned really quick when it comes to the money aspect of playing out live. Sometimes you just have to be a jerk to be sure to get what you're supposed to get. Not in all cases, but some cases, yeah, it's true. It's just the way it is. So, okay, that concludes this part 2 of Story Time, my first gig, and then I went on into how it developed into that band I got into. It wasn't my first band. It was just one of many. And so, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this very much. Thank you for listening. And hopefully this audio is better with no excess or outside noise. Be sure to check the links below to find out about me. If this is your first time listening, my name's Joe. This is my channel. I love to do guitar-related videos. I love to do vlogs. I love to do these little podcast things. Once in a while, I don't do podcasts that much, but every once in a while I do. Sometimes it's fun to tell a story, and it's just even better when people really want to listen. I always enjoy good stories. So yeah, check the links below. Check the links below for more information about me, my website. There'll be a link there for my t-shirts as well, and other things. So thank you for listening. Until next time, this is Joe for the Joe Wentz Project. Y'all have a safe day